What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday midweek. Why are we doing this podcast here today at 1 o'clock? Well, we got a lot to talk about because our guest today, this is only time window that he's got available today, and it's an important one. So welcome in to the latest TDR Trade of Black podcast. I'm your host, Dales. We're talking all things in Milwaukee at the RNC convention with the very own Don Murphy, as he wants to basically share a lot of the conversations he's had in the last 48 hours with some of the different politicians, and most importantly, the topic about cannabis. So let's jump into it. Welcome in TDR co-host Anthony Varrell. Happy Wednesday, and good. Should be a good podcast.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, there's a ton of headlines. I mean, definitely grateful for Don giving us some of his time. At the RNC. I mean, I know there's been a lot of tweets that have left a lot of people wondering what the actual conversations and the breadth and depth of what he's been talking about. So I'm excited to dive into this. I'm glad he's joining us.
Well, let's talk about that breadth and depth on the conversations that he's had in the last 40 hours, and welcome in Don Murphy. Happy Wednesday. You getting much sleep the last 48 hours? I assume not.
No, not at all. You know, it's bad enough that there's a 1 hour time change, so I can't really tell what time it really is or where but waking up early, going to bed late, having great conversations with people. And, to the point that I made in my little video, and by the way, thanks for not wearing the hats, guys. I mean, when I wear the hat, I think I'm going to be in with you, and now you're not. So the fact that I'm here and I'm in the room on the floor having these little conversations sort of suggests that, I say Democrats play identity politics, but Republicans do not play ideology politics. Yeah. I shouldn't be here if Trump is so bad as folks might think, right? They think, oh, he had Jeff Sessions as his AG. He's got to be bad on cannabis. If he was so bad on cannabis, I would have been vetted and tossed out. I wouldn't even be within one time zone of this convention. And I don't share details of conversations, but I can have as many pictures with as many people as I want. Nobody's afraid of me because I'm the weed whisperer. It's not a problem. And the other thing is, a lot of them are a little surprised because they know I'm a conservative, but they don't know I'm conservative enough to get over the hump and be a convention delegate. That's somewhat of a surprise to them. I always said it's not the third rail. It's not something that you have to shy away from, but they never believed that it was politically beneficial as a conservative in a primary, which is how I have to get here. I have to get elected in a primary. So that's news to some of them.
Interesting. So let's talk about, I know some of the tweets, and we do want to talk about, the topic of cannabis. What's the atmosphere like there? What are you experiencing?
I'm almost concerned that they're too jubilant. They're too this is like 2016, I think, on the Democrat side, where they thought once they had Trump as the nominee, they didn't have to Hillary did not come to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And, because they were maybe too arrogant. I don't want to get to that point, but, as we talked a little bit beforehand, there are conversations here about who the AG is going to be. And I know that's important to this community. And if Eric Schmidt is the guy, that bodes well for our issue for sure. So
yeah.
So I mean, what are there any talking points or anything or any insights that you've heard that you can share with us? Obviously, not naming particular names, but has any sort of sentiment indicator you can give us on how the conversations that you've been having have been around the
I will
plan?
be honest, and I've talked to everybody from the speaker on down, but those conversations are very brief, right? Okay. You cannot on the convention floor at a party have even a 30-second is a long conversation, right? And I've had these conversations with these folks in the halls of Congress already. So just being here sort of amplifies that a little bit, sort of brings it to their attention one more time in a setting that they are not used to seeing this, right? Yeah. I say to members who are good on safe banking, hey, thanks for sponsoring safe banking. Appreciate all you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's the only time they're going to hear that comment this week. They're not going to hear that and that's, I'm going to take a little shot at the industry. You guys should be, not you, but you should be here, but they should be here.
Yeah, I was under the impression we couldn't get in the building with everything that was going on.
here's the way life is in politics. Show up and then see what happens. But
Okay.
and the industry should be here. There are the 125 most conservative, influential Republicans in Florida are all seated in the Florida section in the convention hall. If Amendment 3 is going to pass and you want to like get to those people, this is where they are. On Friday, they're going to scatter. They're going to be all over Florida.
Yeah.
They will never be in one place again during this election cycle. The industry should be here. They should be talking to those folks.
100%.
Missed opportunity.
We keep hearing this again and again and again. We had Eric Berlin from Denton's on last week, and he was talking about how, yes, we've come a long way, but again, the amount of support and awareness that this industry is doing, it needs to be tenfold. It needs to increase so much more. So how long's the drive from Detroit to Milwaukee?
Well, I flew from Baltimore, so I don't know. But you could get here by tomorrow.
All right. Stuff to think about. Wanted to ask you, very unfortunate what happened over the weekend, and obviously grabbed a lot of attention. I'm assuming there's been a lot of dialogue around that over the past, couple of days. But I have to ask, with this attempted assassination, does this change things from a macro level for America? And I guess some of the important ballot initiatives and amendments that are on the table right now, like how does this change things?
Yeah, I know it is. It is a little unsavory to talk about this, but that's the world we're in.
I know.
And we landed in Milwaukee literally less than 36 hours after that assassination attempt, and 1 inch in the other direction, and this would have been a horrific week for us. And I don't even know. I started to contemplate it after. Actually, about the time some reporter asked me about it, I said, my God, it could have been so much worse. And we would have been doing what the Democrats apparently are trying to do over the next month. We would have had to do it. And we would have been clearly devastated. So let me just say that. But to your broader question, I think this changes the turnout model. And this is not just me, right? These are folks who are saying the people on the fence who maybe wouldn't go out and vote because they didn't think it was necessary, or they weren't quite sure. They don't like the mean tweets. And some of those Republicans will turn out. I think that turnout model changes a few points.
Okay.
2, 3, 4. And these are the comments by pollster types. These are professionals. It's not me. It's not my thought alone. And if that happens in Florida, Florida has to win by 60%. It doesn't have a lot of room for error.
Right.
And a point or two, it lost by a point or two when it was medical back in 16. So a point or two the other way makes a huge difference. If we lose Florida with 59% of the vote, it happened on Saturday. That's my opinion.
I mean, but also via that last Fox News poll, I mean, Republicans in the state of Florida were polling at 57%, obviously not the 60 threshold, but combined with that, and you could also argue that it'll also increase the vigor of Democrat voters to get out to the ballot box to counter, I would say, the groundswell against Trump. So, I mean, you don't think it could cut both ways? That's
the problem. I think Democrats seem to be devastated to the point where they're the ones that go, we ain't going, right? If Florida's going to be a route for Republicans, then why as a Democrat do you feel the need to even go?
Civic duty, but I guess there's a lot of psychology that plays into that as well.
Well, I'll tell you, as a voter in Maryland, I know that the Republicans generally going to get blown out, and I vote every time, so maybe I'm not the target audience for this one, but those who are on the margins, the occasional voters, they would just say, well, it's over, so why go? In Florida, the reverse would be the case, and those Republicans, those Democrats don't then come out and vote for Biden and then Amendment 3.
So did you happen to catch Andy Bashir's comments today that he fully submitted comments? to the Federal Register in favor of rescheduling, which, talking about candidates, I mean, I think that's signaling a little bit with the increased scrutiny, I guess, against Biden, that he might be the one coming to throw his hat in the ring at some point with somebody else at the top of the ticket.
Well, I thought Bashir was maybe Harris's running mate should Biden drop out, but the polling seems to say that Harris is not the best candidate either.
No.
Why is that?
That a generic Democrat polls better than she does.
Okay.
By some number of points.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be an interesting game here the next couple of months.
Yeah. Hey, let me share, the JD Vance thing. If Trump wins and Vance becomes the VP, then there's a vacancy in the Ohio Senate.
Saw that.
And two of the names being mentioned are Ramaswamy and Dave Joyce, both of which would be just excellent for us. And I did have a conversation. I haven't seen Dave Joyce here, but I did have a conversation with Ramaswamy, and he remembered our little dialogue in Miami from the debate stage. He like literally like pointed. He goes, "Yeah, that was you." And I said, "Yeah, that was."
I mean, he had an amazing speech last night with the 6 minutes that he was up there. I just have to. I mean, in the political calculus of things, is it better to be a senator or better to have a high-ranking position within the cabinet to further your political career? Because I would tend to gravitate towards cabinet. No, as far as political aspirations, or if the Senate seat's available and they want to dial you up, you take the Senate seat.
Yeah, you would always take the Senate seat, I think.
Okay.
The Senate seat is a 6-year term. Now, clearly,
Gotcha.
An appointed Senate seat does not last for 6 years. It's the balance. It would be the balance of this term, and then he'd have to run again, so he'd have to keep it. But cabinet positions come and go. You could be in the cabinet for 2 years. You could be in the Senate for a lifetime.
Yeah.
If you played your cards right. Now, I don't see Ramaswamy as a guy who would be like that, but what do I know? But it's still, we got a couple of good options on deck. Not saying it would be either one of those. The governor makes the pick.
Gretchen writes, we don't care about politician aspirations. We need the senators. And yeah.
Did he cue in on any more of his stance, I guess, as it relates to not really for states' rights? As we all know that he did vote against AU in Ohio, but he is for some semblance of federal legalization.
What he said to me basically, and we didn't get into answering that question so much, but I did feel like he was true to his, he was consistent in his statements, but he did double down, triple down on, hey, it's great that you're here. Like, they need to hear this, and we need to, push in that direction. So, look, and somebody said to me, hey, what difference does it make? He's not going to be the president. He's not going to be the vice president. He's not, and I said, he has the president, perhaps future president's ear on 100%. This issue, as do people like Matt Gaetz and Nancy Mace and Dave Joyce and people who are our friends who are up close and personal, and who Trump sees as people whose opinion he values.
What's this say about American politics with JD Vance being appointed as vice president? 39 years old. Is this the beginning, as like we're starting to see, turning the page of like younger politics and start tackling some of these initiatives like cannabis that we talk about?
Absolutely. And it also juxtaposed to the Biden-Harris situation, where the 80-plus-year-old incumbent president won't relinquish the power to the next generation. And that's clearly what Trump is doing. Millennials have a huge seat at the table, and they may be at the head of the table before too long. Like, this sets up Vance to carry the torch in 2028. And I'm getting way ahead of myself. Yeah. But that's what we do here, right? That's
I've always been of the opinion that if Trump were to win in 2024, whoever his VP is probably going to be the president come 2028. If he can capture the base.
Right. And that's why the bridesmaids are so unhappy, because they know they're out in the cold in 2028. Same thing for Democrats, right? If Harris becomes the president, she is the presumptive nominee going forward. Nobody's going to dethrone her.
Gretchen,
do you see this as an evolution of the Republican Party? I mean, we've seen the platform to kind of take steps back towards, we don't want to implement like a national abortion ban moving forward, coming more center on that. Donald spoke out about it as well. They're now, I don't know if they're fully endorsing gay marriage, but they're fine with gay marriage. It seems to be coming more center. I've seen people kind of speculating that that bodes well for cannabis. I don't really think it has any correlation whatsoever. But I mean, these themes paired with a youthful VP, I mean, is that kind of signaling a changing of the guard and a changing of the ideology within the Republican Party?
Well, the center moves, right? The center becomes the center of where people are, and people are, have moved in these directions. They're very much pro legalization or descheduling, whatever, and that's where this party is moving. And because what that platform says about abortion also bodes well for what it should say about prohibition, right? I'm like, I just scratch out abortion, put in cannabis prohibition, and I'm suggesting that what we want, what we believe in here, is that we're for descheduling or legalization at the federal level. Let the states decide for themselves, just like abortion. We want Dobbs for dope.
Yeah. We always talk about the medical side, but let's face it, this is definitely a recreational industry now. When you talk about Vivek, and he's talked about, I think we need a reset as far as the country and the mental health issues that take place. What do you think his stance is on recreational legalization with cannabis?
Well, I think, like so many politicians, they don't want to be pro. When you say pro legalization, I know what you mean, and I know what I mean. But what they hear is pro drugs or pro pot. Like, oh, we want to be pro cannabis, like some people are pro alcohol. Oh, let's have a cocktail party. Let's go have a drink. They're not there, and they don't want to be seen as advocating for that.
Of course.
No. I was watching Mike DeWine yesterday, and I was hoping he was going to say something about adult use cannabis. He was talking about Ohio, how the state's been becoming more progressive, how everything's growing within the state, and he starts rifling everything off. And I'm like, say it. Just say it, please. And he avoided it completely, which was par for the course. Yeah,
I'm gonna rip the Band-Aid off and say your chances of hearing cannabis mentioned from the podium, from the stage, I was going to say just north of zero, but it's going to be zero.
Yeah.
Like the person that's going to say that is Trump. No one is going to preempt that.
Yeah.
Especially this week, right? It's one thing for senators or reps to say that on Capitol Hill, but it's another. This is his week. This is his show. You don't go on. And look, the speeches are in the teleprompter, right? Yeah. And I should maybe take a picture and show you. There are 3 of them. They read their speeches. That cannabis is not going to be put in the teleprompter without somebody signing off on it. And I don't think anybody's going to sign off on it. I'm sorry. It's just not.
Happy Burner writes, Don said same thing about State of the Union, but I think there's lots changed in State of the Union.
A little bit of a difference.
And that's true. I did say that, but I was disappointed the year before. Yeah. Like, I didn't understand how, after those pardons, which was supposedly such a big deal, which apparently Trump has made more cannabis pardons than Biden. And I've heard that said here. I can't, give you the specifics, but that's what I've heard. And I was just expecting that Biden was going to be tone deaf again and miss the opportunity. I did spend 12 seconds on it. Those were a big 12 seconds to us. Yeah. I think it could have been more, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
I just don't think this is the place for the party to do it. I think at some point, President Trump will be asked on the campaign trail about this issue, and he'll either give a yes or a no. But I'm talking to the people who surround the president and letting them know to be prepared. And this is what I would suggest as an answer. This is how you handle it. And I've seen people say he hates alcohol, he hates drugs. Yes, but that doesn't mean people should be arrested for it. And I've had conversations where people have pushed back. Generally, I think a super majority of people in this hall agree with me.
Yeah.
And those who don't, when I get in a little conversation with them, I'm like, so if you caught your kid with marijuana, what would you do? They would yell at them and they would do a lot of things, but they wouldn't call the cops. And I say,
no,
you're no different than me then.
Well, he's all about the economy, and there's a new trend that's starting to materialize here in the space, how European countries are wanting to list on senior exchanges beginning of 2025. I don't know how realistic that'll be and what the chances are, but one thing's for sure. I think that's got to shed some light, because if that man likes anything, he likes to drive the economy and keep things obviously in-house within his own country. But clearly the time and place right now is not this week, considering what's been happening in the last couple of days, and then obviously what's at the forefront here. But Gretchen, you say it best. Mainstream politics is mainstream politics, and cannabis is not mainstream as much as we want it to be. And that's pretty much as accurate as it gets right now. But what do we...
to her point,
yeah,
the press is not here asking the question. Like I'm the only, like Matt Laszlo's here, and I know he's talking about this, but there's no one else. And, I failed to mention that Brian Mast was in the president's box yesterday.
Yeah, we saw him.
That's a beautiful thing to see. Our position is not just held by fringe members anymore, and those members have the president's ear and respect.
Yeah.
And there are 200 and some Republican members of Congress, and only a few seats in that box, and Brian Mast had one of them. That's very good for us.
Yeah, we reached out to his team. They said they'd be available in September for a podcast. So hopefully that comes to fruition, because that would be great. Okay, it's Wednesday. You got to get down to the convention in the next little bit. But what is on the agenda moving forward? Like, what are you looking to achieve ultimately for this week? Just soaking it all up and try to meet as many people as possible and get as many conversations going, I assume?
Yeah, that's the beauty of being on the floor. Honestly, the floor is not the best place to be if you want to see the convention. It's better to be up in the alternate section. And honestly, I will probably be there on Thursday night just because the scrum of people on that floor will be so packed. You will not be able to move for probably 2.5 to 3 hours. They'll lock it down an hour before the president comes out. The speech will probably be about an hour, and it'll be at least a half an hour before you can move. They'll drop tens of thousands of balloons. They will fill the place, like it will be up above the chairs, and you will be locked in like packing peanuts in an Amazon box. You can't move until you get peanuts, and it's I won't say it's scary, but it can be a problem if you've been standing there for 3 hours and not being able to talk to anybody but the person that's the people that are surrounding you. So I may go up in the alternate section or the guest section. That's probably the best place to watch the whole thing.
What time's he slated to speak tomorrow night? Is it around 10 o'clock Eastern time?
I'm guessing it's probably closer to 9:30. There'll be time for the speech and then time for the sort of the balloon drop before they want to end by the end of, say, 11 o'clock Eastern, right? They want to make time for the news. They want to make time for all the pontification and whatnot. They don't want it going over what they'll call prime time.
Yeah.
And they'll script
that. Vance is tonight, right? He's doing a speech tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
Michael Song writes, Don, if there was a hypothetical vote in the House right now on whether rescheduling to Schedule 3 should go forward, what percentage of GOP do you estimate would vote for?
At least half.
Okay.
Let's just use the safe banking vote as sort of our benchmark. If you voted for safe banking, you're not voting against 3. There are people that voted against safe banking, like J.D. Vance, who did it in part because they say, we are really putting the cart before the horse, right? how do you vote to bank something that is still federally illegal? It really doesn't make any sense.
You can't really argue that logic.
Right. So
yeah.
it's consistent and it makes sense, but those people will support Schedule 3. How about this? JD Vance did not sign on to that letter that a number of members have passed around, right? So that's good news. And look, you got an exclusive with him. That was pretty cool.
Very cool.
That single interview changed my opinion of him completely when he actually took time out of his whatever transportation walk or whatever he was doing.
You're not getting that again.
Oh no.
No.
Well, that question I asked, we probably walked 30 yards before I actually finished my question, and I had no idea if he was going to respond or not. But not only did he respond, but he answered like 3 or 4 questions, which was great. But do you believe him that if SAFE were restructured, that he would support it?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's a lot of good things in there for conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
Project Choke Point gets fixed with safe banking.
Mm-hmm.
I should change the name and call it, the Project Choke Point Fix Bill or something, because that's of more value to most Republicans than safe banking. In fact, a lot of members say, aren't they able to bank already? And yes and no. It's problematic. And look, remember, this safe banking was never my big thing. It was just incrementalism. Like nobody cheers a 3-yard run unless it's for a first down.
Correct.
Right. And that's what I was looking for. First down. Move the chains.
One last comment I'll bring up from Gretchen. She says, JD Vance is a Trump clone or even further right than Trump. We are not moving to the center just because he's younger. Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah. He's not somebody that conservatives are going to have a problem with.
No.
Right. He's okay. He's not appealing to the center because of any of that. He appeals to a demographic because of age and whatnot, and his geography. And so would Rubio, right? But Rubio's problem was I think he had a residency problem.
Yeah.
He was in Florida, and they're both in Florida, and that was an issue. Look, I'm way happier with JD Vance than I would be with Tim Scott. I hate to say it, Tim Scott, but so.
We got another good question before I let you go. Based on your answer, if Schedule 3 happens, what do you think the risks of it being reversed in early 25 with a vote in the House or Senate under Congressional Review Act?
0.
Okay.
0, yeah. CRAs, they're not going to use the CRA to knock out rescheduling if it gets implemented before the inauguration.
No. Look, remember, Jeff Sessions repealed the Cole memo. And that was bad. But it wasn't bad because it was right. They didn't do it because of that. They did it because it was an Obama era directive. But the proof is in this. They didn't start arresting people after that, right? They didn't start implementing, enforcing the law. In fact, in some ways, it's like, okay, without the Cole memo, we still didn't do those things.
Yeah.
And for those who want to argue that the Cole memo, well, then where's the Biden Cole memo?
Are you having conversations related to SAFE about some of the rescheduling dialogue as well to gather some attention towards some of the conversations you're having this week? Is that helping things at all?
Not so much.
No?
Many of the people that I'm talking to are good already. It's funny who's here. Some of these bad guys. There's no Pete Sessions. There's no Chuck Edwards. There's, none of those folks. Now, okay, Andy Harris is there. And if you saw when we made the announcement, there's Andy Harris and there's me. 2 people on either side of this debate standing shoulder to shoulder when Maryland's 37 delegates were announced.
Yeah.
It kind of was poignant that happened. It was by accident. I didn't plan it. I'll tell you what was by accident was that Maryland was in the hall. We are seated in a different, same aisle, different sides of the aisle from Utah. And I was standing behind the Maryland podium, but behind me to my left was Utah. And Utah announced their delegates just before ours. And I turned to my left and I just walked past Mike Lee. I turned to my left and there's Mike Lee. And I'm like, it's a good time for some Jello. And we had a little laugh. And that's when Dave Bossie, our national committee man, who is the head of Citizens United, turned to Mike Lee and said, it's Vance. And at that very moment, Trump was putting it out on Truth Social. And Lee was like, can I say anything? And he goes, go ahead. And
go ahead, Don.
I was standing there. I just took my phone and hit record when Mike Lee made the announcement that it was Vance. And then I put that right up on, and then Leaf people came to me and said, can we have that? I'm like, it's all yours. So I was right there when Lee made the announcement it was Vance. So that was kind of fun.
If there is a Trump presidency, and I mean, one person that we talk a lot about is Steve Daines. Where does he fit into that puzzle? Or where do you see him kind of evolving? Because I mean, he would be a very important piece to have somewhere within government and an elevated position versus where he is now.
And endorsed by Trump, right?
Yeah. So thanks for asking that, because I forgot about that. There's so much material. I can't keep track of it all. After Saturday, and that's good for a couple of points, whatever. That makes a difference in places like Montana and Ohio and Nevada and Pennsylvania. And to my friends in Maryland, Larry Hogan is not going to be the 51st Republican senator that hands the gavel to the Republicans. Long before Larry Hogan wins, if he does, we'll pick up all those other seats, or many of those other seats. So he might be, 53 or 54 or 55, but he's not going to be 51. And the Democrats want to use that talking point, but that's not the case. And if we have 53, 54 Republican senators, Steve Daines, in my opinion, would be the Senate Majority Leader.
Got it.
He would win that. He would win that position by virtue of picking up all those seats.
Interesting.
That would be very good for us. Imagine Steve Daines as a Majority Leader, Ramaswamy or Dave Joyce as a Ohio senator. Yeah,
things might actually get done. Yeah.
Wow. Lots of questions being asked. When Trump is asked the question about cannabis, do you have any sense for the direction of the answer, or is it a total unknown at this point? It's an unknown, I would say.
It's just like so many other things with him. It's unknown, but he does know how popular it is. Yeah. Like, I don't see Donald Trump sticking his finger in the eye of 80% of Americans.
I don't either.
No.
He's very good at deflecting things, and without, I think, putting a vote of confidence behind it and supporting it. But he'll just rely on, obviously, with the states, which I think is 100%, which will happen. Another question, and no one knows this, but does J.D. Vance's mother, being a heroin addict, affect his opinions towards cannabis? We don't know that answer, but do you think?
If it affects people's opinions in an unfortunate way, right? If they blame all drugs and we get swept up in that, and sometimes it's blamed as a gateway drug. Did she use marijuana before heroin? Who knows? No way of knowing. When I talk to Rick Scott and he tells me his brother died of a heroin overdose, that's devastating. And it's hard for people to pivot from, okay, drugs are bad. They're so bad they killed my loved one. And now I'm going to come out and be pro marijuana. That's the problem with being pro marijuana. You're not pro marijuana, you're pro federalism, you're pro states, right? Letting the states decide these things. I think President Trump, like many other people, know folks who are using marijuana for medical purposes. And so that's why I think Schedule 3 is so safe. They also know people who use it just, for adult use, recreational purposes. And so my question, hey, you catch your friend or your kid using pot, do you call the cops? No. Well, then I want your policies to reflect what you're actually doing in real life. Otherwise, it's hypocritical. Everybody else gets arrested, but your kid doesn't. Unfair.
Yeah.
But there's so many other things that need to be addressed at this point. this is not the kind of thing that makes it to the campaign.
No, I get it.
Generally, it's not really making it in the right way with Democrats because the Biden administration is trying, or the campaign is trying to obfuscate what Schedule 3 really does.
Yeah.
They're conflating it with, adult use, and it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So, I don't expect the Republicans. And here's the other thing that's unfortunate, and I think it doesn't help our situation. I thought there was a time when if this race was close, that Trump coming out for Amendment 3 in Florida would help him win, not just Florida, help us win the amendment, but pick him up some votes and make Biden look bad by comparison. Yeah, Biden was for Schedule 3, but Trump is for Amendment 3, and Amendment 3 is way better than Schedule 3, right?
Yeah.
But if you're winning, if you're talking about a 300 electoral vote win, then you don't need those things. You don't need the Hail Mary. It's Biden that needs the Hail Mary, right? It's Biden that needs safe banking with hope and all those other things. So, I can see Democrats being more vocal about it, or needing to be.
I mean, he mentioned it.
Their coalition
He mentioned it again yesterday at his NAACP speech. Biden, mostly focused on criminal justice reform, also speaking in the past tense, which is always a little unsettling considering we're in the middle of the process. But yeah, I'm hoping he's going to get louder and potentially force something in his favor, which might be wishful thinking, but we'll see.
Well, and if he did what you just said, if he's talking about Schedule 3 as it relates to criminal justice reform, I'm not sure how the two things are the same.
They aren't. They aren't. That's the problem with the comm strategy that he's leveraging. He's always saying that people should not be jailed for marijuana possession. Meanwhile, Schedule 3 doesn't really have any, or if any, implications on that whatsoever.
It's disingenuous at best.
Yeah.
Correct.
Does Biden increase his chances of winning if he acts on full legalization before November? That's not happening.
Sure, it's never happening though.
Don, I don't want to take any more of your time, but I really appreciate you taking the time here today. And best of luck, obviously, these last 36 hours to 48 hours. You're flying back on Friday, I assume?
Friday morning. Yep.
Friday morning. All right, sir. Lots of great comments here today. Lots of great questions. Snoop Dogg was part of Trump's Comedy Central roast, so maybe Snoop Dogg comes up and speaks over the next day or two, which I highly doubt. But Amber Rose definitely got some attention, and her 23 million social media followers. I actually watched it on CNN just to see what they'd be saying about Trump on Monday night. And my God, when I listen to some of these people, they're like, I think she's got a lot of followers on these social platforms. And I think they're probably going to cut this up into 10 or 20-second videos, and that'll probably get out to her audience. And I was like, I cannot believe how dated some of these networks, the way they sound, but the audience size, like, good, clever move. I know she's got a bit of a controversial background, but at the end of the day, she spoke well and got through to her 23 million followers. So it's a good strategy move by what they did.
Well, it was a good strategy move by the Republicans, but think about it from her perspective.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know who she was when she showed up. I really didn't. I got to be honest. But she made a calculation that she was not going to lose friends and followers by supporting Trump, right? And you gotta assume that her followers were more like her than like me. Right?
Yeah.
So she did not offend. Like, she took a calculation and said, nope. Like, she knows her audience. Know your audience. And she still did it.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? Her audience is more receptive to this message than Democrats want to believe. Think about this. When the Teamsters guy, now you'll love this. This is a little inside, right? The Teamsters guy who mixed it up with Mark Wayne Mullen. Remember that video? Mark Wayne stands up and says, let's go. And, like, put up or shut up. He spoke on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
The Teamsters president spoke to the Republican conventions. Apparently never happened. And that's the guy Mark Wayne Mullen had a dust up with. And Mark Wayne Mullen was spoke, I think, last night, but he didn't speak the same night as the other guys. So
Well,
we'll have a cage match out front before it's all over. But
the great shift is happening. In 4 years from now, I don't think we're going to see the CNNs and Foxes. I think you're going to see a lot of streaming platforms that are posting this and having a lot of these conventions that are really at the forefront. They already are. But like Vivek said at one of the GOP debates back in, what was that, March, why are we being asked questions by people from NBC that were part of this whole collusion with, the Russian collusion of the election fraud that took place, whether that was true or not. But he had mentioned that we should have Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson moderating a lot of these debates, which you can see some of the potential and rumored elected officials later on down the road. And once that starts to happen, you're going to see things just move a lot quicker, even in Washington, which seemed like a pipe dream before. But interesting to see how things will develop and some of the conversations that you're learning this week. So,
well, look how things started. Like in 2016, 15, Trump had millions of followers on Twitter, so he could cut through all the noise and the filter of these networks that clearly have their own agenda.
66 million Facebook ads he bought for his campaign. Hillary bought 6,000. There's the difference.
Yeah.
And that's 8 years ago. Think of what 8 years does in the tech industry. Like 8 years ago seems like 80 years ago, prior to these.
Yeah. Well, 4 years from now, you guys will be here for all 4 nights, and you'll be on the road in New Hampshire, and you'll be kicking the tires and talking to everybody. And so imagine where you guys are going to be in 4 years, and this industry will be. And it's just unfortunate that we aren't there sooner. And but it is what it is. It's better than it was 20 years ago. I can tell you that.
Very much so. It's better than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
At this point.
Don, I'm going to let you run, but if you can, I want you to just hold on after we're done the show for 2 minutes. I want to quick talk to you, but
Sure.
Listen, enjoy the rest of your time in Milwaukee, and we'll catch up with you next week once with our audience on the live stream, just to get some more takeaways from this whole week. Okay.
Terrific.
All right. Thanks, Don.
Thanks.
We got a lot to cover here, but I think we're going to tackle this probably on Friday. But the PA debacle, I don't even know where to begin with that. And I do know that we've reached out to some of our resources, and you have too, Anthony, to get some dialogue.
I've got a call in 20 minutes to talk nothing but Pennsylvania with one of the insiders from the state.
Yeah.
So I will have a firsthand account of exactly what's going on, because I've heard that it's still intact. I've heard that it was dead, which I said yesterday, and I got a little bit of flack for that. So yeah, I've got a call in, like I said, in 15 with somebody inside Pennsylvania to get a firsthand account of exactly what's going on and the expectations down the road.
Yeah.
For the adult use framework. As far as the giant shitstorm, I guess, in terms of the actual semantics of the legislation, I found it just mind-boggling that they included processors and cultivators, but excluded retail dispensaries from the available tax credits, and actually ratified that into law.
It's
blows my mind.
The lack of communication amongst different government agencies is alarming, to say the least.
It's just reading the legislation that you're proofreading and then ratifying.
Yeah.
There are 3 license types.
I know.
Processing, cultivation, and then retail distribution.
Yeah.
Like, to omit those is, I don't understand it.
Yeah. Okay. So you have that call in 15 minutes. So we'll let you run with that as well. SNDL restructure. I know there was quite a few SNDL investors that were on here earlier. Is there anything you want to touch on that real quick, or?
I mean, just they're deploying about $11 million in capital in the next couple of quarters to effectively yield $20 million in cost savings. I think this has a lot to do with the acquisition with the stalking horse bid for Indiva, as well as just company-wide. I've reached out to Zach for a direct quote or comment, so we can cover that on the Friday stream in more detail as well.
Yeah. Hemp is in the crosshairs. Again, I guess we all know
what's going on there. I mean, it's the FDA and the FTC are actually going after Delta 8 and some of the other intoxicating hemp-derived products, which I would love to see sweeping actions by the good old 3-letter agencies and actually do their job and stand up to what's going on in the hemp industry. versus worry about what's going on in the safe, tested, and regulated state-run cannabis business.
Yeah.
Industry.
If you want to learn more about Anthony's take, make sure to log on to thedalesreport.com or click on the QR code below and subscribe to our Baked In newsletter. He's got a pretty in-depth takeaway in our newsletter here this morning pertaining to that. As usual, please like, share. YouTube gives you all kinds of nice recommendations based on liking and commenting on these videos that pertain to this industry. So appreciate any support that you guys can provide, and give some love, obviously, back to Mr. Don Murphy, who took some time out of his busy schedule this week to give us some really important dialogue as to what's been materializing so far in Milwaukee this week. Big night coming up. I'm interested to see what JD Vance has to say, among other people, but should be an interesting night. And again, I know some of you people have been questioning just some of the political angle. Look, this is extremely important. We're going into one of the biggest elections. And as Dan Aaron said basically on Monday, this is not a fundamental play. This is a political play right now. So politics first. Companies are doing what they're doing, as we're going to highlight next month with regards to earnings. And that is all headed in the right direction. But let's face it, if we get some movement here in Washington and some stuff that's really materializes, then all this is going to come together and create better opportunities for the overall space. So that's why we're covering a lot of this stuff right now, and hope you understand. But feel free to leave some comments. If you have any questions, let us know. We'll get back to you and consider some things that you want us to talk about. Anthony, thanks for checking in early here this afternoon, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and good luck on that call.
I will report back on Friday.
All right. We'll see everybody back here on Friday. Take care.
Yep.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching our latest podcast. Lots of momentum building. You guys getting all excited? Leave comments below. Again, we want to take this viral. Smash that like button and make sure to click on that bell for all notifications as we start to bring on bigger and bigger guests. Don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, the Baked In newsletter, by logging on to thedalesreport.com. And we want to take this viral, as I said, and make this community grow. So make sure to subscribe on that channel, because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everyone, for watching.